free.
I'm off for a second, but then I'll be.
No worries. No worries. Well, if you can, we'll be. The door's open for you, sis. Okay, let me just check that I'm there. I have to find myself. Literally.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah,
Keep
very
looking.
good. I know. I'm here somewhere. Here, Boogie. Here, Boogie. That didn't work. Okay, let's try. Right. I think I'm there. I can't quite see myself, but let's just drop this down and go hello and welcome to the show. And before we begin, let's reset it first. Let's have not quite yet. Let's it's one. No, not you yet. Yes, you.
Guys, Billy Carson here, also known as Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4. I wanted to give a special shout out here to Sifu Boogie. And that's Sifu, which means master, okay? Open your mind to the way, the conscious way, the way of conscious mindfulness, and follow the way of conscious mindfulness on Facebook, ASAP, okay? Much love from Forbidden Knowledge. Thank you.
My name is Emily Harrison, founder and director of the Akashic Academy and mentor to other lightworkers in the realm of the Akashic Records. I gotta give a shout out today to Sifu Boggy, my personal Sifu. I wanna invite you to open your mind to the way, the conscious way, the way of conscious mindfulness. Peace.
Hello and welcome to, well, today it's Doc and Sifu, and actually no, Doc, Sis and Sifu's monthly ponderings with the awesome, amazing, the absolutely wonderful and fantastic Joseph Delaney, aka Doc, the beautiful, the delectful, the delightful, the I'm trying to think of lots of words, the auspicious, the amazing, the I don't know, I've forgotten, but anyway, Shanine's here, the one of Shanine, and yeah, and there's me. Hello. So welcome to this month's ponderings. We while as normal, Boggy was having a little bit of chaos. We was having an interesting conversation. Are we going to repeat it, or is it one of those conversations that never be said ever again? No, so but welcome. Go for it.
Thank you, Boggy. It's lovely to be here. I wasn't intending to be. I was sitting here with my dried cranberries and my water, and I was going to chill out, but there doesn't seem to be any chilling out over the last couple of days. Joe and I were talking about that. There's an intensity to the energy, and I think the words we were using were like burning out and combustion. I was on a call with you earlier about it as well, just like really, really fiery frequencies, and about the importance of being with the body and staying in center, because the experience now isn't emotional. It's not like emotion. It's something much deeper than that. And the attempt to label it or understand it is probably obstructing the flow of the heart that wants to come through all of it and transmute all of it. We don't need to get caught up in what's moving through us. It's just doing what it needs to do. And Joe explained it in a much better way than I did. But yeah, so I'm feeling a bit tender today. It's probably the best way to describe it, but not unbalanced for change, which is good.
You're unbalanced. You're not unbalanced. You're very passionate. I wouldn't say you're unbalanced. But I will say, and then pass it over to the doc. I will say there is definitely, the last couple of years I've been talking about the waves and energy coming through, and I think this is because it was something you said that when you tried to pin it onto an emotion, you couldn't seem to pin it on an emotion. I think that's a telltale sign. My teachers would tell me, my Sifus would tell me, that's a telltale sign when it's out there and not in here, when it's from something else. And I mean, like if you go for a dark house or a dark place where there was the black forest in Germany where the concentration camps are, and people would suddenly really get angry and start, and it's like, that's not coming from you, that's coming from where we are at war. And I think the energy that's coming up is bringing that up. That's what I think it is. I think it's not necessarily things that people get or understand because it's a bit woo-woo, but they know, NASA knows this energy is coming into this universe coming into our solar system and our planet. And whether you see it in a scientific way or whether you see it in a spiritual way, it freaking exists because we're being affected by it, and as simple as that. So that's my view on it, at least, or that perception. Over to you, Doc.
Yeah, I agree with what both of you said. I didn't understand what you said, Sifu, because I never do. But Shaheen was clear enough, right? There's almost like a fire and a fiery intensity to the cleansing process that's going on. Yeah. Now, in 2011, I got woken up in the middle of the night. I always say 3:33, for a bit of poetic license, but it was in the middle of the night, and I was woken up. And I got this message. It wasn't a voice, although I have had voices. It wasn't a voice. It was a really, really intense thought form to say, you need to find out and tell people about the great shift. And I thought, that's good. Yeah, because I don't know who it is that talks to me or sends these things. But I said, that's very nice because I'm going to go back to sleep now. Let me know in the morning what you're going on about, And so then what happened was I looked up the great shift in consciousness. There wasn't much information on it. But in 6 months, I've become a sort of renowned expert, so-called, on this great shift in consciousness, which was new to me, but I started to really understand it at depth. And I think that's what's happening is, I was called to go and give talks across the country and stuff like that. And basically, if you look at yoga philosophy, for example, they believe in a great big universal turning that goes on over eons of time. Boggy, stop messing about. I'm trying to be serious here, for God's sake. So anyway, there's great big cycles of change that happen over eons of time, where the whole universe turns round. And in that process, it's not really a revolution, it's an evolution, because it's like a spiral process where the universe itself is evolving. And because we're in this universe, then we're evolving as the universe evolves as well. Because as without, so within. That's the principle of correspondence, And to cut a long story short, in 2012, on December the 21st, 2012, apparently, according to the ancient Mayans, that was the end of a particular cycle and the start of a new one. And at the time, I think lots of people thought that was going to be the end of the world and we'd all be annihilated. But in actual fact, it's almost like one page was taken away and a new page started, And I think over the last, and it's, in this sort of great spectrum of time, 9 years isn't a great deal of time, really. And over the last 9 years, I think more and more and more people have been awakening, if you like, and waking up to the fact that things aren't necessarily what they appear to be. And there's a lot of stuff that's been going on under the surface that's now being brought up, if you like, to be cleansed. And over that time, I've been sort of reintroduced to the sacred feminine energy. I didn't understand any of these things, and, Isis. And what's happened to me is I've reconnected with an ancient understanding that I seem to have about what's going on in ancient Egypt, And all my life, I've almost been guided by somebody or something or an energy called Imhotep. And Imhotep, he was the architect of the Great Step Pyramid in Saqqara in Egypt. And it was the first pyramid that was built, right? But not only was he an architect and understood geometry, but he also understood the principle of vibrational medicine as well. And that's my field now, is energy medicine. Now, at the time, I was just a simple sort of biomedical scientist who didn't understand all this wavy stuff. Well, I did really. I understood it inside, but I didn't really understand the theory of it. But over the last 9 years, it's almost like as information's come to me and I'm getting more clarity. Have I got it sorted completely? Not in the slightest. I think I get bits of information that comes to me, and then it takes me a while to break it down into manageable chunks. So where I feel I'm up to is I get a feeling first, and sometimes I get pictures and sometimes I get words and stuff. And then I almost have to step it down and break it into small portions to be able then to sort of give the information out to people and stuff like that. So I don't know whether that was anything to do with what you asked me about, but I think, yeah, I know what I'm coming to is that there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the invisible realms that science won't have anything to do with, because science needs to see it. It needs to be able to reproduce it and all these sort of things. And I think that there are etheric formative forces that are at play that are actually impacting upon our consciousness and the way that our mind works, to change the way that our bodies work, to bring in this new sort of human being. Other than that, just being a simple sort of a day, really.
Death and rebirth. Death and rebirth in continuum, and a remembrance inside of the consciousness of previous ancient incarnations. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was with India, and it was Hindu wisdom, and integrated the feminine aspect of Ganesh, who appeared to me when I went inside. Over the last number of days, it's been the Far East, and the synchronicity as well as the symbolism and the energetic has all been tied up in ancient Taoist Chinese wisdom. The reason why I'm open to this is because I'm still, and because part of me doesn't care. Yeah. There's some level of this where you need not care, right? Your focus is on the physical experience, the human experience, the immediacy of your immediate life. When we give ourselves over in devotion to each moment and each person we meet in our day, present to that, then we're getting out of the way of whatever this very great shift is. Our magnitude isn't meant to be understood, but we get enough to understand, just enough to understand. And there's nothing more than that to understand. The information that comes in is very momentary. So in essence, it's useless. The only way it can be helpful is by having these discussions and saying, well, I physically feel it this way. I've observed this. But each person, and I've heard this very clearly many times over the course of the last couple of days, is having a very unique experience. And the reality that we're in, every single person has been here before many times with us. There isn't a single person inside of our reality that we haven't done a dance with in thousands and thousands and thousands of lifetimes since. And it's these rules that we are reconnecting to at this moment in human history and releasing everything we previously were. You know, the idea of new now is much bigger than it was previously. It is not just new as we used to speak on it, building from the old. It is a literal releasing and flushing of all of these ancient energies. And the identification that we make with that only holds it up. It holds up the process. So I'm not in a place right now where I understand a thing, because I don't. And I'm seeing a lot. I had some really weird stuff happen with Steve last night. I don't know whether I'm allowed to talk about much of it, but I wrote about it very briefly. There was like the Tai Chi symbol came in. I was working on his energy. I saw a dragon at his solar plexus point, and there was this sort of energetic dance that we did that I had not. It's like we were both ourselves, but a deeper version of that. And this experience with him was sort of introducing him to a sensitivity to his own body, and it was like necessary for me to kind of introduce him to it, to kind of step into that for now and play that role so he can be aware of it within himself. But our days are ordinary. You know, the days are ordinary. You get on with it. You have to get on with it and not get caught up in your head about any of this, because we're not the only ones who are experiencing it. Everybody is going on, you know, about their days right now with ordinary issues and ordinary challenges. And my highest choice right now is to just take care of myself. I'm taking very good care of myself. That's all we can do. I think that's all that's necessary at the moment.
Very quickly, so it's the Kali Yuga. You two are both talking about the Hindu cycle, and it's the Kali Yuga that we are said to be in right now. But like the Mayan calendar, it's not the end of the world. It's just literally the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new cycle. But there is a great release, or a great release of you know, I think it's where, you know, in religions, you know, the apocalypse, but apocalypse just means change. It means new beginning. And I think it's more of the shedding of an old to awaken to the new. But there's an interesting thing, Sis, you just said, which reminded me. The American Indians say this, and the Taoists, my Sifus and Taoists in general would say as well, that there are at least two worlds we exist in simultaneously. Well, they would say, Taoists say three. You live the physical world, the emotional world, and the spiritual world. So it's the emotion, you know, the emotional world where a lot of people in their foreheads of all the past. They said this or said that, and she said the politics, as I could call it, because the one thing that people think politics is politics, but there's politics in freaking everything I've ever come across. Tai Chi, in Qigong, in stamp collecting, there's all so they're holding their stamps the wrong way round and this and that. It's like, and that's the emotional world that we live in, the physical world that we have as well. But then there's what's coming up, I think, as well, is the spiritual world. Is this spiritual? We're seeing more stuff. We're having activations of these symbols behind me. For those on audio, these symbols that are behind me, that in the ancient knowledge, you saw them as a symbol, but when you knew you was awoken, when it became 3D, when you saw it in the physical, like on a computer screen or in virtual reality, and it comes alive. And when you see these things come alive, you're in the spiritual world. But these three worlds, the ancient Inuits, the ancient American Indians, all of the ancient cultures, they would say that these are as real as this one. And that's the thing, like in science and modern society is trying to say, oh, that's just in your head, and that doesn't exist. If it affects you, if it can bring fear, or if it can make you sweat, or if it can do that, that's real, that's physical, everything. And I will say it once, epigenetics, that your emotions will affect your physical body, and then and so if it can affect you spiritually, it can affect you emotionally, it can affect you physically. So it's all freaking real, and it's all important. But don't get lost in one and leave the other two behind, because you'll become unbalanced. The biggest thing in the West is that you hear, oh yes, the monks go off to the mountain. But it's only in the East you tend to hear that the monks come freaking back, or the hermits that go in the mountain, if they haven't actually turned into light and disappeared, they tend to come back to teach the rest of us some stuff, because if they don't, it's a waste of freaking space. It's a waste of energy. So it's that whole thing of that, these all this information is important, but don't give up one for another. You got to go.
Yeah. Bye-bye. It's lovely to see you both.
Love you, sis.
And you,
Okay,
darling.
I'll catch the rest later.
Okay.
But yeah, I was just going to end saying, don't, those at least those three realities are real, but don't get caught in always, while you're in this physical form, you have to try to balance the other two. Over to you, Doc.
Yeah, I agree. And it was lovely to see Shanine as well. And everything she said, I totally resonate with, to use that expression. Yeah. Because I think there's loads and loads and loads of people, all at various stages, if you like, of escalation. It's like an escalator, and I think some people are a little bit further ahead. They could be called way showers or whatever. No better, no worse, just at different stages on this whole process, And I see it in a cyclical way, really. I don't see it in a sort of a line where there's higher and lower. I see it as just a different place on an escalator, which goes round in cycles and things like that, So yeah, I've had two very long conversations today, funnily enough, about epigenetics. And it's an area that I'm particularly interested in, because I think, genetics and epigenetics, genes, right, basically are codes that construct proteins. But the epigenetics is an overlay, in my view. It's an overlay of previous past reactions to life that were defensive. If you want to call them coping strategies and whatever, but they're almost like obstructions to the free flow of the energy that's coming from the primary DNA, the primary smile of the universe, if you like. I'm just going to say this as it comes out, because in some Buddhist traditions, they call that the original face. Some people might say God itself or love or whatever. The problem is we try and personify these things and put a body picture to these things, and that can obviously obfuscate and block things. So to me, what I feel is it's an open and flowing energy. And complementary therapies believe that any pain is a consequence of an obstruction to the free flow of this energy, which we can call unconditional love, And so what is causing the obstruction? It could be, right, fear or pride. There's only two things that obstruct the free flow of love, in my opinion. And the love's not coming from the human being. It's coming through the human being from the universe itself, And so what blocks it? It's some sort of defensive mechanism, right, that obstructs the flow. And I think that's where we're up to now, is that we've been misled and misguided through our ignorance, through our naivety over a long, long time. We've almost been led by the nose into desires that we could never sort of get or achieve. And we've been taken away from the primary purpose of life. And this is where ancient Egyptians come in. And they believed that the primary purpose of life was to find your soul's purpose and to construct a beautiful and joyful life based upon your innate intelligences, your particular individual talents or skills, And I think that's what's happening now, Boggy. I think people are turning inwards now to look for the answers rather than turning outwards. And unfortunately, there's still a lot of people who are turning outwards and switching the television on and listening to that and still being misdirected and misguided by a lot of stuff. But my understanding is that you get to a certain point where you just realize that everything out there really is just to distract you away from finding your true essential self. And I was saying to Shanine before, I saw a program on the television at the weekend where the pharaohs, and the sarcophagi of the pharaohs were being moved from the old museum in Cairo into this new construction, and it completely absorbed me. For 3 hours, I was just sort of in there. I felt like it was a whole part of it. And all my life, I felt that I've been guided by this sort of consciousness, I'm not saying that I was like Cleopatra's sidekick or anything like that, but I think when you go into various aspects of your mind, I think you can actually tune in almost, right, to the information streams from ancient times. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people now. Just something else that's just come into my mind, and I'll pass over again. You know, I've also looked at a lot of Rupert Sheldrake's work on something called morphic resonance, you know, and he believes that there are streams of consciousness that have been developed and never go away. They're always there. Every thought that's ever been thunk, right, and every stream of consciousness, it's still there in the universe as part of this great whole. You know, and you can actually, as you get better and better at meditation and sinking deeper, you can actually align with various consciousnesses from the past and almost be fed by this ancient wisdom. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to tune into the ancient wisdom and combine it with modern neuroscience to make something that's more understandable to the general population, so that we can actually, and this is I will shut up now, we can actually use simple, practical techniques to be more emotionally calm, to think clearer, and to make better, more intelligently kind choices. Over to you, sir.
Indeed, what he said. Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, or you know, is to watch out for the distractions. Is that, you know, is that ourselves, our higher selves, universe, God, banana, what you want to call it. I think there's always, the whole point of this universe is that there's always something to distract you. There's always, you know, I think, you know, don't think, yeah, you're always striving to, you know, to have a good life, and always striving to have a good day. But there are waves, there are ups and there are downs, you know, there are low points and there are high points. And it's that whole point of that when you are in the funk, when you are, and not the 70s funk, that was quite good funk. Yeah. But when you are, you know, when you are in that little slump. Anyway, stop it, Boggy. For those on audio, Boggy's dancing, which is probably, I'm saving your ears and your eyes because you're on audio if you're on the podcast. But yeah, the whole point is that we have these waves, we have these dips, these ups and downs, these dips and troughs, and the whole point is that they give you opportunities to learn from. I think one of the biggest lessons I learned, for me, like with the Taoist stuff, and a lot of people talk about, you know, the hero's journey or you know, shadow work, and it's like, but the biggest thing is that the shadows are your Sifus. You know, all your biggest traumas in life, everything is your Sifu, and so therefore, you know, you need those lows at sometimes just to give you opportunity to look up. You need those things to understand. But also, which you've just mentioned and Sis mentioned, is that so that's part for me, the emotional world, of understanding those troughs and highs. But on the spiritual side, you're going to get hints of the past. You know, the past is still, it is the past, but it's also a lesson. So if you said that, you know, you have a great connection with, you know, watching on TV or something, and it's the Egyptian stuff, look into it. It's telling you something. It's giving you a way of moving forwards. It's giving you more information. You know, don't dismiss anything, is what I'm trying to say, is that everything is teaching you. And, you know, I've gone through a very interesting couple of years where a lot of people would be, you know, beside themselves. Yeah. And it's this thing of, but I'm seeing it in a different light. I'm seeing it in a slightly, you know, different way. It's different opportunities to help you grow, and it's different opportunities. You know, when down, what you do, look up. For me, breathe, breathe. Hand on the heart, as the mighty Doc would say, but also look up, because that's where you want to head. Don't look where you know. Don't look at it. If there's something in front of the car and it's heading towards you, don't look in the rearview mirror. Look straight ahead and apply the brakes, and you know, and steer the car and try to, you know, steer around the best you can, or if you can't get out of its way, you brace for impact, but in a relaxed way. Which I've actually learned is that if you tense up in a car accident, you actually do more damage. Actually, relaxing is a very it's one of those situations. I learned a metaphor that actually, when an impact comes, when you do deal with something, if you actually deal with it in a relaxed way and you sort of go with its flow, it actually does less impact. It actually, and that's physical, as in car accidents, but it's also like life. When something happens, embracing with it and oh my God, and getting caught up in that tension is not actually going to help. You need to let it go and go with the flow and look up and find keep with that positive attitude. I think, I'm not saying that, you're like, Mr. Hat-like Joker and have this permanent grin on your face. But because I do believe, as a Taoist, I very much believe you should find your flow and try to stay balanced. But if upset, if angry, scream, shout, wail, have a temper tantrum like a little child, do what you need to get it out because of epigenetics. If you don't, it will cause issues. So get it out and let it flow out. And then move on and then find a way forward. And I'm going to stop talking. So over to you, Doc.
Yeah, if there's something playing on your mind, best get it off your chest, and find somebody that you can trust who won't give you any advice as such, just as somebody who will listen while you express it. Because my feeling is that everybody's got the solution to their own problems if we fully express it. I see that it's like ticker tape, and you've got to fully express it until all the ticker tapes come out, and then the solution's at the end of it, which might say turn left, and that's the solution you've been looking for, a simple, straightforward solution to all problems. And as you say quite clearly, to me, my life has become about simplicity now. These are Taoist principles, actually, simplicity, balance, and I'm just trying to remember the others. So we've got to remain sort of empty, and to make sure that there's space there for new, fresh information to come in. But in order to do that, sometimes to create space, you've got to let go of the old stuff, And I think what Shanine was saying before is, this is a new situation we're in now. We can't rely on anything from the past. We can't rely on our knowledge from the past. We've basically just got to rely on our innate intelligence to guide us through every single situation that's coming up, because I don't feel what's happening now that we've ever experienced anything like this in the human race. And therefore, to fall back will probably be a mistake, because we'll just be using stuff that hasn't obviously worked. Because if we really look out there and look at the state of the world now, the state of the world, it's in that because we've all contributed to it in some way, and I think that that's what personal responsibility is, that in some way, shape or form, we've contributed to the way that the world is now. So my view is that we clean up our own side of the street and see if we can't bring something fresh in to make the world a better place. I'll be blessing everybody in a second and stuff. But, Sifu, this is stuff I didn't have a clue about, and I used to be such an impatient person and want things to happen very, very quickly. And now I realize, there's a phrase, give time. Because if you create space and you relax and you're humble enough to realize you don't know really what's going on, that's another way to create more space for more information to come in. I used to be one of those, know all, knows, I won't say that. Somebody called me once a knowledgeable idiot because I had loads of words, I had loads of information about stuff that looking back now doesn't mean anything at all, and I realized today is the simplicity of it is, if you just wait long enough, the solution will flow to you in its own time at exactly the right time, and that's why I think things like Tai Chi, I finally learned Tai Chi, that it wasn't about a physical exercise. It was basically about understanding the flow and to be moved by the universe, not for us to move the universe, because all the way I was trying to say to the universe, you will do it my way because this is what I want, And as I've said before, this great big guffaw would come, that's what you think, Sonny. You're working from your desires, not your needs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you to pull your life apart and leave you on your last legs. And then I'll pop in and I'll show you how it's supposed to be done. So tag on behind and I'll show you, and for the last 29 years or nearly 30 years, I've been sort of following the flow, and my life has changed beyond my wildest dreams, And one thing I've learned more than anything else, and Buddha's reputed to have said this, is I'm intricately and intimately connected with the way that I breathe now. So that's what I pay attention to. I'm very focused on my breath, and not only the quantity of breathing, but the quality of breath as well. Because I think the more that you get into understanding the actual nuances of the breath, I think that's related to the nuances of how we think as well. And the deeper you go, the more understanding you have about how you can actually breathe in certain ways to change the way your mind works, to give you more of an idea of how to cope and navigate life.
Indeed, what he said.
You're looking very, if you don't mind me saying so, you're looking quite calm and shiny tonight. What's going on? What's going on?
Shiny, shiny, shiny seafood boogie. There was a song called Shiny. Anyway, no, I don't know. Well, I've had a few technical difficulties, and somehow we're on my other YouTube channel, not the normal YouTube channel, which I don't know what Zoom's done, but apparently we are on the Way of Conscious Mindfulness channel, but anyway, yes, it's all good. And see, this is the interesting thing about, well, actually for audio, you will have no idea what I'm pointing at because you can't see, but there is a Tai Chi symbol. Now, a lot of people call this yin yang. It's the symbol that's got like a little fish, like a little black fish and a little white fish and two little dots in the center. Its actual name, or how it was always taught to me, is Tai Chi. It's the flowing, that yin yang is half a white circle and half a black circle, opposing opposites. And when things are opposing, they're, like the Piscean energy, they're fighting against each other, politics, fighting against each other, this against that. This is like Tai Chi symbol is sort of like making love, or sort of like a friendship. There's that balance, that so Tai Chi is not just this, and the symbol came first. The Qigong, or the system called Tai Chi, came later. That's the symbol came first, and Tai Chi was the philosophy. It's the philosophy of balancing the yin and the yang. So yes, it's this whole idea of and it's got a circle around it, and the circle within both Japanese and Chinese is very, very important. In Chinese, it's called Wu Qi, which means unlimited possibility, unlimited potential. So within that unlimited potential of the circle, you have the yin and the yang, the feminine and the masculine, the lighter things, the darker things, the bigger things, the smaller things. There's a whole list of what they are. And they're blending together. And even the two little dots actually represent, in the darkest of nights, you will find stars. In the brightest of days, you will find a shadow, or you'll find darkness in a cave. You'll always find the yin and the yang, and the yang and the yin. And it is this constant play that, the day doesn't just suddenly pop out of nowhere. You get dawn, and the dawn rises, and then you get the afternoon, and then you get the middle of the day, and then but already by the time you get to the middle of the day, it's already starting to wane. It's already starting to go down to the afternoon, down to the dusk, and then from dusk you get the night, and you go all the way through the night, and even at the middle of the night, you're already going to the other side where it will eventually be day. And it's this radiant, is that everything is flowing from one to the other. So the symbol, even though we see it as a static thing, in meditation, you're meant to see it as a sphere, and you're meant to see it rotating. And it's this idea that things are more than just a set thing. We sort of see things as you are you are Joseph Delaney. Well, you know, once you were a kid and you grew up into a teenager and an adult, and you have many phases. And the phase that you are right now, and the phase you're seeing at me right now, it's only still a phase. Yeah. It's, you know, there will be many, unless the universe has its way and it finally dumps a meteor on my head, there'll be many more years of seeing me, and there'll be many more different phases. And that's the whole point. You know, we go through these cycles, we go through this we go through these moving bits, and and you know, it's the whole thing. We transcend from one thing to the next, so we move from one thing to the next, and nothing ever really stands still. Even the mountain that appears to stand still is actually moving on a micro level. And there's a lot of things moving in there, and that's that point, is that everything's shifting and moving. And so wherever you are, whether you're in the brightest spot of your life or the darkest spot of your life, it's moving. It is moving. So if you're in the brightest spot, if you're having a great day, freaking enjoy it, appreciate it, thank it, and go with its flow. If you're having the darkest moment of your life, again, thank it, appreciate it, know that if you look up, know that it has to change, it has to shift. Everything shifts, everything moves and transcends. But as any good Taoist should say, hey, what do I know? And over to you, Doc. Actually, that's what every good Taoist should say. Over to you, Doc.
Yeah, that will be an evolution of the Tao, right?
Yeah.
So,
if I do anything, mate, that's what I'm going to have. Is in 5,000 years scriptures in the future, I'll just say, over to you, Doc. Yeah. Who is this Doc? Who is this person that the great Tao speaks? Anyway,
it's continuum, isn't it? It's like a thermometer. It's like a thermometer. At one end, there's 0 degrees. At the other end, there's 100 degrees. One represents heat. One represents cold. But when does heat become cold? Because for different people, it's at different places, isn't it, really? You know, so it's a subjective experience of this sort of continuum. And I agree, you know, there's a lot of stuff happening in my life now that over a few years ago, I'd be on the drink now because I'd be unable to handle these things emotionally. And I seem to be in a place in my life now where no matter what's coming in, I seem to be able to maintain a sort of equilibrium now most of the time. I haven't got it fully cracked, you know, but I seem to be outside the box of actually what's going on in the world as an observer, really, a sort of global or universal observer. But I have an ability to step in if I need to. And most of the time where I used to step in, where I thought I was being helpful, it was just interfering in other people's lives, you know. And I've realized today that personal responsibility means at all sorts of levels, the individual is responsible for the choices that they make and the consequence of those choices, because it's all about experiencing at depth, isn't it? You know, and the other thing is that, you know, I used to think I was a quick learner. But looking back, I was really, really thick, really slow, because things repeated themselves that often, but I didn't have any space or enough space away from it to see that these patterns were repeating themselves very often as well, you know. So, I mean, I'm starting to understand more and more about how karma works. And even karma from 3,500 years ago might be impacted upon my life today. Because where I'm at today is a conglomeration of everything that's gone before me down my own ancestral lines as well. So these are things that are coming to me, understandings that are coming, you know. And in cardiac terms as well, because I work a lot with the heart and stuff like that, you know. I've learned that in medical physics as well, there's something called long-term anti-correlations. And I didn't know what that was at first, but it's basically karma, because actions from the past can still be impacted upon our heart rhythms now. So we can actually change the way we breathe now to almost balance out all the damage that was caused years and years and years ago. It's a fascinating subject. But my prediction, if you like, based upon what's happening is, I think medicine will change within the next 5 to 10 years out of all proportion, and medical physics will be leading the way, because medical physics understands things like electron spin resonance and computed tomography, you know, those big CAT scans that you go through and all that. They're using physics all the time there, and an understanding of how oxygen works, how electrons work, and certainly how water works, you know, because water is so important, because the waves from the great central sun will impact upon our sun in this solar system, which will then impact upon the water in the atmosphere. The electromagnetic waves impact upon the water. It penetrates our skin. It impacts upon the water in our connective tissues. That then impacts upon our cell membranes, which allow energy in or out, as the case may be. In the end, that will impact upon the way our DNA expresses itself. So in a way, it all comes down to the sun, light, sound, water, vibration, energy, frequency, because everything's moving at different levels all at the same time.
Wow, indeed. And that's really interesting, because the sun thing's come up a lot for me recently as well. There's a lot about the whole sun energy, and going back to for me, a little bit controversial topic to some people, but like sun gazing, you know, like dawn and dusk, and just allowing the sunlight, you know, to come in, not necessarily staring directly at the sun, because what always makes me go, oh, you stare at the sun, you go blind. Well, you go outside, don't you? And you know, so you're outside and the sun's there, and you're still, you know, don't look directly at it, but you know, the whole idea of sun, dawn and dusk is as it's setting, and you can draw that light in. But there's information, you know, the sun information. We know noise comes off planets. We know noise and vibration comes off the sun as well. And there's information coming off that affects, you know, our DNA, affects us in general. And it's learning to be able to harmonize with that. And I think, or even just quite simply going out freaking sight, you know, is that we've had this, you know, there's a lot of people, oh, you know, the lockdown, you must stay indoors. And it's like, you know, no, you need to get outside. You need to, you know, get some of that air. And yeah, the whole idea of water, and yeah, we are, well, chi, in the Eastern philosophy, chi flows. You know, it is like water. Everything is energy. The ancient Taoists, the Dreadnought shaman, they would talk about that. Everything is energy, and that everything connects everything else. And we're in quantum physics, they call that the field. That you know, the field is interconnected to everything. So you know. And science is going, or quantum physics is going that way. That field is affected through your thoughts. It's affected through your emotions. Through everything affects everything else. And I think, you know, it is interesting. Like this waves of like well, all three of us. I had it a slightly different way, but you know, the anger that we're feeling right now. I think, you know, look at the world's angry. You know, the world's been, you know, for what, you know, doesn't matter what, you know, how you, what you see what's happened, but you're angry because you can't do what you could used to do like 2 years ago. Everything's changed. People are angry because they feel more and more restricted and more closed up. People are angry for all sorts of reasons, and that anger is building up. And it's a swell, but it's like, don't get caught in that swell, you know, to flow around it, but don't, you know. I learned this technique, and I've mentioned it a couple of times now. I learned this technique from my Sifus, that they wanted to teach me about the flow of the universe. So what did they do? They threw me in a river, and they said swim to the side. And it was a really strong river, and I swam to the side, absolutely knackered, pardon my French. And I got up to the side, and what did my great Sifu do? He pushed me back in and said, "Now flow with it." And so it's like I was too tired to struggle again and try to swim out. So I literally just kept my head up, and eventually the river treated me like a big log, and it pushed me to the bank. And the metaphor is that when you struggle against the universe will give you something to struggle about. You'll be fighting against the tides of the universe, the flow of the river of the universe itself. But when you let go, metaphorically, whatever that is, but when you flow with it, you'll naturally find yourself to finding a resolve. You'll naturally find yourself being pushed to the sides. So there is this thing of stop trying to fight against yourself, especially your emotions, the society. Flow. If you want to change things, then you do something. Don't worry about the rest of the world. You do it in your way. You flow in your way. But and it's about it's about that. Stop trying to do revolution. Do evolution. Evolve. Change naturally. It's very much one of my big things now. And one of the things I learned is like through. Sometimes for me, doing lots of Qigong and lots of meditation, stretching, Neigong for me, and Qigong, that's given me the energy to find the solutions to do other stuff. Because when you've got no energy, there is no way. You're too knackered and you're too blind to see what's going on. But building up, when you create that clarity through meditation, when you create that energy to actually do, when you get that opportunity to do what you need to. So laying still and to get near that river bank, and then you grab and pull yourself out, at the last moment. But it's learning for me, like these techniques have helped me. You find the opportunities and go with it. You go with the flow, and then when the opportunity comes, you're ready to grasp. I think too many people are so busy kicking, panicking all over the place, and when the opportunity presents themselves, they're too tired or too blind to see it because there's so much in red mist. They don't actually see the opportunity going by. Over to you, Doc.
Yes, that was a good story. The metaphor that will remain with me from your story was the big log. Anyway, that's the way my mind works, you see, Sifus. So I agree with you. And I think where we seem to be now with regard to the world and its people is we've come to a sort of the final obstruction where the world is built almost opposite to natural principles. And I think in the end, it's almost as if the universe has said, look, I've given you that many tips, but now I'm going to have to show you how it's supposed to be. So in my mind, and what I'm observing is it almost seems to be like a disintegration of all man-made systems seems to be happening. And there's a lot of people who are now turning back to understanding about biorhythms, the rhythms of nature, the construction and the geometry of nature as well, back to almost, if you like, the patterns of nature as well. And I think more and more people are intuitively understanding as they go deep within themselves. And this is partly to do with the reactivation of the pineal gland, because the pineal gland is about biorhythms and chronobiology. This seems to be coming out, so I'm just going with it. So as the pineal gland opens, it understands about energies. It understands about melatonin, because melatonin is almost the hormone that regulates the way time works and the way time and space, And sometimes, you've probably experienced this quite a lot as well. Sometimes in meditation, everything seems to stop when time stands still. And that's why when time stands still, there is basically no time in that present moment, because there's no space. There's no time and space, because time is dependent on space, isn't it? It's the distance between 2 points. And that's when time sort of starts off. I mean, I don't know what I'm going on about, but it sounds good, so I'll just keep going. But the point about it is, that's about horizontal points and movement. I think true meditation is when you get to a neutral 0 point, when time stands still because you're not going anywhere. But at that point, the perfect awareness comes in to see everything as it is right in that moment, And I've had a few of those points. I used to get them as a child and I couldn't understand them because I'd be in this place of sort of quietness and complete stillness. And then there'd be a part of me to think that I remember this. And when I come out of it, right, I'm panicking all the time. And that's what used to happen. I used to come out of this stillness and go back to a really panicky, sensitive, frightened little child, you know. So there's lots of things happening now. There's lots of time distortions going on. People take drugs and things like that, you know, because what actually happens is it alters the way we process information. And if you work out, it's the way we process information that gives the sort of the impression of time, whether it be speeding up or slowing down and stuff. So there's lots and lots and lots of stuff to go into. My big thing, Sifu, is what practical information based upon our experience can we give people to just practice simply to help them remain emotionally calm and maybe make clearer choices based upon thinking more slowly, thinking more deeply, thinking more expandedly, and seeing more options. How can we help people in that regard?
That's a very good question. My answer would be breathe. Please breathe. Don't turn blue. I am a first aider, but I'm nowhere near to help you. But breathing, you know, there's a great Taoist saying that says when your breath is fast, shallow, and aggravated, your thoughts are far shallow and aggravated. Your emotions are far shallow and aggravated. But if you can breathe slowly and deeply, and fluidly and quietly, your thoughts will be this. Your actions will become this. So, you know, when you find yourself, you know, in situations where you're panicking or angry or frustrated or you know, jealous, how are you breathing? Listen to your breath. You know, Doc will say, and he will say it in a second. Listen to, you know, feel your heart. Listen to your heart, because this is the core. This is your center, and this is where you know this is where it all you know resides. Is that actually starting to focus on your breath and focus on your heart and slowing things down? It will change everything. Now, or of course, I can teach you a qigong as well. There's a billion qigongs I can teach you, but a simple technique: breathe. Please breathe, but breathe with intent. It's how you breathe that's important. Don't just breathe, it's how you breathe. Over to you, Doc.
Yeah, final words really is, and it's about the quality of your breathing, as I've alluded to really. And the technique that I've learned is if you just put your hand on your heart and maybe put your other hand on top of that one as well, get a sense of where your heart center is. Because I think what the heart of hearts to me is the soul. It's the deepest, most essential part of what you are as a human being. And I also think it's your innate intelligence. And innate intelligence means that you're born with this thing. It's not something that you've made up with your ego mind. It's something that you came with. And basically, it's the seat or the source of intelligence. So my feeling is get a sense of where your heart center is, and then try and find a gentle, caring, loving, light-hearted feeling. And just as Boggy says, is become aware of your breathing then. But breathe in that gentle, beautiful feeling all the way in. Stop for a bit. Collect all the stress and tension that's inside of you. And as you breathe out, just allow all that stress and tension to be given back to the universe to become balanced. And then breathe it in again. Now, the thing is, the slower you can breathe up to a point, the better. If you can get to, over time, by practicing 6 breaths per minute or thereabouts, something from a neuroscience point of view happens that's like magic. The yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine components, and the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems start to work in a complementary and what's the word I'm looking for? A balanced union. They start to work together. So the complementary opposites start to work in harmony with one another. And that's the point at which we get this big influx then of intelligence. You know, and when I say intelligence, I don't mean intellect. Intellect's based upon what you can remember. Intelligence is something that comes from a much deeper and more expanded consciousness. So I hope that makes sense. So it's just 3 10-minute sessions a day just trying to practice this. And don't worry, because at first your head will jump in, your monkey mind will come in to say, this is all bollocks, this, I'm not listening to it, I've got no time for this. That's what you're trying to overcome. So you can have a sharp word with it and you can say, hey, you, back off for a second. I've never tried this before, so I'm going to give it a go. And I swear to you, this simple technique has changed and transformed my whole life, right? And that's why I'm so passionate in trying to pass this on, because I know that it's worked for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. And if you're suffering from any stress, anxiety and depression, I swear to you, give yourself a fair chance, have a go and see how you get on. And if it doesn't work, hey, you've lost nothing. But if it works, you may gain everything. So there you are. That was a bit like a sort of a lecture there, or a preach bit. But, you know, I really mean it. You know, it's transformed my life. And it's helped me to understand life at a much, much deeper level. There you go, sir.
Yeah, well, ultimately, Qigong means breath work, working with breath. That's the whole point. And what I do is just giving you techniques to then everything you do becomes a Qigong. That's the whole point. But that is one of the most fundamental keys of what Doc's talking about is, you know, if you can just start to give yourself, because it's interesting that there's so many distractions in the world not to do it. So that's the point. If there's so many distractions trying to distract you not to do this, why are these all these, you know, well, why is, oh, don't worry about meditation, meditation is sitting on the mountain going that's a form of meditation. That's not the only one. And breathing, you're breathing anyway, but breathing with intent, and what Doc is talking about, that is so important. So I always say this from time to time, and I know you're going to give me some silly answer, but Doc, if people want to find you, where do they find you, Doc? Where can we find you out in the web, in the world, in the universe?
If you just look on Facebook, that's the only place at the moment, because unfortunately I've really got no time to do one-to-one stuff or anything like that. So I'm trying to bring out little sort of sessions where I'm combining ancient philosophies with modern neuroscience and putting it across in a simple, practical way that may help people, because there's no doubt about it. In this time we're living now, right, there's never been so much confusion going on, you know, and this simple breathing technique will help to dispel the confusion and bring us, you know, sort of clarity from this chaotic situation. So if they keep an eye on my Facebook page as well, I'm trying, some space is being created for me in the next couple of months where I might be able to sort of rejig my website and stuff like that. But I'll let everybody know anyway. And
cool. What's your Facebook page on Facebook?
It's, if they just put Dr. Joseph Delaney, I think they may be, yeah.
Joseph, very true.
Yeah, it is Joseph Delaney. Yeah,
I know.
My brother. He said to me, he said to me, you can't call yourself Joe. He said you must call yourself Joseph. It's more professional.
Yes,
so
indeed.
I took his advice, because he's more sage than my golly old self.
Indeed, it's all.
So Sifu, God bless you, mate. I love you like mad, and see you next month, eh?
Indeed, I'll see you next month. Indeed, everybody else, if you want to know from me, you can look on. I'm here on YouTube on my normal site, which is Seafood Boggy on YouTube. I'm also on Instagram under the same thing, TikTok, and I've also got a Discord, which you can look up from there. And if you're interested in doing Qigong and energy work classes, I am on Patreon. So www.patreon.com/Seafood Boggy. So from us, it's goodbye from him.
Bye everybody.
And it's goodbye from me. Guys, we love you loads. Until next month, it's see you later from Doc and Sifu's monthly ponderings. Bye for now.